All right. Hello, everybody. Happy Tiff Talks Sunday. Today is June the 6th, and we are back for another all new episode with Tiff Talks. And this particular episode is actually going to round out and conclude our blooming season that we've been in this particular quarter. So, I am Tiffany, owner and operator of Tiff Talks. And this platform, Tiff Talks, was created as a safe haven to be able to discuss um, impactful issues that are um weighing on our community, whether it be minority mental health or breaking generational curse, or even just financial literacy. Those are things that we discuss on this platform, and I am your host to lead and direct that conversation today. Moment of transparency, I should not be hosting this show. I actually reached out to our talk partner Ken, who is very much so well versed in this talk topic and has much more experience than I have in this talk topic, to take the lead. But she was so gracious to be able to say, no, I'm going to take a step back, and recommended that we reach out and have our co-host and talk partner Kenneth Parker to take the lead on this one and to be involved. So he is here today to share in the dialogue, and I will give him the opportunity to introduce himself and to give us a little insight about his experience with our talk topic, emotional intelligence.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Kenneth Parker. I am the talk partner. I am the talk host husband, and just a little bit about my background. When it comes to emotional intelligence, I've noticed in my work field, being a manager for so long, that you really have to know who you are at all times. And we will get into that shortly.
All right. All right. So disappointed I am not with being able to share the platform today with Ken. From my experience with him, I've always known him to be a very mild mannered person, able to self regulate, but don't push him because he will definitely go there if need be. But always being able to come from a good place with his perspective, and knowing him, I am sure this would be a very candid discussion, but also a very eye-opening discussion. For me, it's always interesting to be able to get the male's perspective on things, and that are such a vulnerable topic to discuss. And emotional intelligence is definitely one that I'm sure is a vulnerable topic to discuss, but also one that could use a discussion from both a female and a male perspective. So I am gracious enough to share this platform with him today and ready to get into it. So for me personally, I have no problem at all with being self-aware of my own feelings, my own emotions, my own desires. My struggle when it comes to emotional intelligence is always being able to appropriately express myself and seize the opportunity to express myself in that moment. Oxford defines emotional intelligence as the capacity to be aware of, control, and express one's emotions, but also to be able to handle interpersonal relationships in an empathetic way. Now, on the surface, I feel that I've accomplished this definition, and that I would give myself maybe like a 7.5 of being able to master this emotional intelligence thing. But me too, as many other people, can oftentimes be overcome with pettiness and will immediately become the mouth of a babe. But in becoming a mouth of a babe, I would say that all that is in me comes from a genuinely good place. And because it comes from a genuine good place, I rely on something that was expressed to me long, long time ago by a dear friend of mine, who said that to know me is to love me. And it is so easy to hate me if you don't know me. So for me, I come from a place that, being that I'm genuine in all that I do, being that all that is within me, even hell on wheels, comes from a good place. I would say that I am capable of displaying and being able to manage an emotionally intelligent way. So I think it's important to start from where I am and where most people are. And that's that key component of having self-awareness. So Kim, my first question for you is, in a practical sense, what is your perspective of how self-awareness ties into emotional intelligence?
Well, self-awareness, first off, is the foundation of personal growth. So that's like big with anything. That foundation is what you need in anything that you do. And self-awareness is the foundation, that is the pinnacle of everything. And it's also the keystone of emotional intelligence. Because I mean, once you understand yourself in any
Mm,
type of situation, you can control any situation, and the situation don't control you.
mm.
So that's the biggest thing, because you do not want to become consumed and lose yourself in any situation, because
Mm.
it can easily turn bad. So
That's good. That's good. I like that. I think one thing that really stood out to me in your response to that is understanding your role in self-awareness, being able to understand not only your involvement but your limitations in that as well, and not being overcome by the limitations that you may have when it comes to your own self-awareness. That's awesome. So I'm not going to shortchange myself. When it comes to being self-aware, oftentimes I know for sure that I am an awesome communicator, but in being that awesome communicator, where I know that I fall short is I oftentimes am more mindful of other people's feelings, of other people's emotions than my own. So I absorb those feelings, those emotions of the other people. And while I am, I guess, giving them the hierarchy in the situation, I'm screwing myself because I seize the opportunity of being able to express myself in an effective way at that moment in time. I used to be, and I'm transparent enough to say I used to be really bad with like holding grudges. I've grown past that of holding grudges, but I will say that I harbor feelings. And I want to be clear, it's a very big difference in holding grudges and harboring feelings. So holding a grudge is more so where you have like resentment toward that person, or you come from a place of having bitterness, versus being able to harbor feelings. I feel I more so like shelter my feelings or conceal my feelings, as opposed to being or seizing the opportunity to express those things. So I found myself, when I would hold grudges, in like this toxic place, in this toxic place where I didn't take ownership for my own foolishness, and not taking ownership of my own feelings or my own foolishness put me in a place where, when I got past that toxic place, I made myself a promise that I would not never allow myself to remain in a situation, remain in an instance where I felt uncomfortable. So being able to now be at a place where I can take a step back, own my feelings, own how I feel, and return back to the situation, even if it's hard feelings there or not. For me, it comes from a state where I can be vulnerable with myself, but also own what's going on around me. So, my question for you is, when it comes down to emotional intelligence, is there a balance of vulnerability in that?
um yeah, because you're gonna have to balance it. I mean, like you said earlier, yes, there is the definition of emotional intelligence is five components. And she said them. You got self-awareness, self-regulation,
Hmm.
motivate, I want to say empathy, and social skills.
Mm,
And they all tie together because they have their own definition.
hmm,
Vulnerability really ties into, I feel like, self-regulation and motivate, because you have to self-regulate. You have to hold yourself accountable.
hmm,
That's the definition of self-regulate. And also with motivate, you have to stay positive.
mm,
So that's a and you have to learn these five key components to really have a good balance of emotional intelligence.
hmm.
Um, but I think that's the biggest thing with vulnerability.
Now, for vulnerability for me, and I say this so often, I feel that when you become vulnerable with someone, you put yourself and that person in a position to have the capacity to truly harm you at a greater risk than those that don't have that vulnerability with you. Um, And that can be a good and or bad thing. I think tying into vulnerability is also being able to understand that component of forgiveness,
Mhm.
because when you become vulnerable you run the risk of being harmed, but you also have to learn the concept, the key concept of being able to learn how to forgive, whether it be forgiving yourself or forgiving that other person.
Mhm.
But those are things that I feel that to truly have a fulfilling life you have to be able to grasp and understand it, and it's not easy. um but those are things that you have to learn to be able to understand what it means to be the bigger person. And truly for me, one situation or multiple situations that I found myself in is I will have been vulnerable with someone and get hurt in the process, and have to process, have to self-regulate, have to motivate. But then in the instance, like while I'm doing all of those things on the outside, I'm struggling on the inside internally, like why I gotta be the bigger person, like why I gotta be able to take the lead and share how I feel and things of that sort. But for me, I always feel that that always ties into this level of effort that goes into being emotionally intelligent, or being able to understand and portray or put out there that you are emotionally intelligent. So, one, like a couple of weeks ago, something that kind of played into building this actual outline was myself and my boys. We had went to the grocery store, and we came back from the grocery store, and my 4-year old, who, if you've ever seen him, is a slim little string bean. I mean, he's tall, but he's slim. But we got ready to get the bags out the car, and here he is, the smallest one, grabbed the heaviest bag. And immediately, just acknowledging his effort, I said, "Oh my God, Kendall, you are so strong. You doing so good." And my eldest son, who, is a bigger boy who's able to carry more and be able to help more, he immediately say, "No, he's not." Like, in response to saying that he's not strong or he's not stronger than him. And processing that instance, I immediately responded to my 8-year old, "Hey, it's about the effort." Because him, even at 4, had this instinct and effort to want to carry the heavier load, wanted to be the bigger person, wanted to show how strong he was, although he didn't understand that's what it was. When I think about emotional intelligence, I feel those are two key things that tie into being emotional intelligence. Being able to have that instinct, but also putting forth the effort to want to be emotionally intelligent. So, my question for you is, what key factors do you feel align with emotional intelligence from your experience?
Social skills,
Mm,
um, communication, period. If you don't know how to communicate, you can't align nothing
mm,
because I mean you wouldn't know how to balance the situation
mm,
or de-escalate the situation or find another way um, to help the situation out. You
mm,
wouldn't know, so you would have to really dissect the situation. I'm talking
mm,
about it had to happen so fast to where you have to be see what's going on, catch the body language of everybody if there
mm,
was multiple parties,
mm,
and know how to redirect what's going
mm,
on in a better positive manner. Because at that point, it's on your shoulders to really. You might have to like you gotta be like
mm,
snapping, like okay, boom, okay, they seem upset, boom, okay, they
mm,
they they have a high pitch, okay, boom, okay, they. I need to de-escalate them. I need to figure out why they mad. I need to understand the cause to get to the effect, and then get to the result for the
mm,
resolution. Like you have to do
mm,
all this at one time, so it's really boom, boom, boom.
hmm. And I think it plays into being able to being able to be decisive at that moment
You have to.
and make a decisive decision. um I've read like multiple times, whether it been like a meme or in an article that I've read before, that you are not responsible for how other people receive things, but you're responsible for your own reaction to that.
Mhm.
And vice versa. When having a conversation between Ken and I can say how I feel. And I can take ownership of my own personal feelings, and no one can take that from me because I'm entitled to my feelings. He's responsible for how he's receiving it, and I'm responsible to my response to that. Now for me, I'm just like a naturally emotional person, and one of my colleagues redefined it for me, and I will own it. And that what she said is, I'm a very passionate person, and I'm okay with being passionate. But in that, um I understand that also when it comes to being a very passionate person or being an emotional person, I've been in situations where it's like, Tiffany, you can't expect yourself from other people. And that's something that he preaches to me all the time. And even though I get that there are levels to awesomeness and everyone has their own awesomeness and not responsible for other people's awesomeness. In like a venting session a while back, I was challenged to be able to come from the standpoint of understanding that my 90% or my level of awesomeness at that point that I give out may be another level for someone. So if I'm giving 90% in a situation, that may be someone else's 40%. And for me, it got me. Like I was like, okay, I can go with it. I can understand that. I can grasp that concept until it backfired. And when it backfired, for me, I was like, okay, if I'm reprocessing this situation and if my 90% is someone else's 40%, then even if that's their 40%, their 40% will feel like 90% to me. So when it comes down to emotional intelligence, I am like interested to understand from your insight. Do you think that there's also levels to emotional intelligence?
Oh yeah, I think so. I mean, because everybody, first off, don't understand it.
Mm,
Secondly, is not aware of it.
mm,
And even if they do understand it, they don't understand what level they are to it.
mm,
You can, it's like with anything, beginner, intermediate, advanced. Um,
okay.
it's a lot of beginners. It's a lot of like household have leaders, businesses have leaders,
Mm,
everything has leaders. And I feel like leaders have to be the most emotional intelligent person in the room.
mm,
For the simple fact they have to be the person to balance it out, and they have to understand what's going on in the capacity of the room,
mm.
especially like the household. She is the head of. I'm the head of the household, but she is the mind behind the household. She is the
The
mindset
neck.
of the. She is the. So I may be. She may be the one rock around, like on 2000. And I got to sit back and be like the one and be like, okay, hold on now. We got to really think about what's going on. We got to really reevaluate what's happening in the house. What happened? Who did what? Why is this broke? Why is this? Who wasted this on the floor? Okay, why did you do this? It's steps. I got to calm her down. I got to calm her down first, and then we got to get everybody else in line. And that's a whole job in itself. So, but you have to really yes, you really have to consistently like it's I feel like that I'm not gonna say I'm advanced, but I'm above intermediate.
Mm,
Only simply because I do understand the levels of emotional intelligence. I can probably walk into an argument and understand what's happening in the argument. I could tell you who's wrong in the argument, and
mm,
I can probably reevaluate to how to make the argument better to where we can all come to a mutual understanding.
mm,
So, I mean, I can do that, but I still have my own struggles. I'm still learning myself. I'm still learning how to self-regulate. I'm still learning how to, cause remain positive.
mm.
Um, and I'm still getting better at communication. I mean, I'm still having my issues. I shut down still. I still have my own ways, but
Mm.
it's still it's levels. I want to say she probably right at intermediate, but she got a long way to go. She got better. She got better.
I was gonna give myself intermediate
Oh,
anyway. And I would give myself intermediate because the same where I'm able to, and I think I'm different levels and different settings, if that makes sense. So in my workplace, in my career, in my trade, I have to be advanced because I have to be able to distinguish what's going on and be able to dissect the situation and respond appropriately. And oftentimes my team will laugh at me because they will be asking me a question and giving me the insight, and I'm owning it. I'm taking it. And I'll take a minute or two to process, like physically. So they're talking and they're like, did she just hear me? Because I'm there and I'm processing and I'm a minute or two quiet before I respond. And that's because I'm really learning how to be politically correct in my responses. And I would say I'm advanced in my workplace because I've dissected some situations and overcome some situations in my workplace that I had no other choice but to be politically correct. Now, in my home, I would say I'm intermediate because there's a lot of vulnerability, of course, in this home where I'm given the opportunity to be vulnerable. So I have moments where, just like you, I shut down, where I walk away, where I have to process. And then I have moments that will take me from 0 to 12 really quickly. Um,
Extremely.
but in that, um, I think one thing that we have learned in our marriage, in our relationship, is being able to give each other the space to do that. That's one thing I think we used to really be horrible at. Like we would get into it, and it was like in that moment we needed to talk about it. We needed to address it in that moment. Now it's like, okay, I need some space. You need some space. Let's take some time to walk away from it for a little bit before we address it. And when we come back to address it, it's a whole different situation
Mm-hmm.
where we can both own our wrong in the situation and then also acknowledge the other person's efforts. And I think that's what really has given way to a better communication between us, and then really understanding each other's roles as well, because you talked about how in the, you have to be a leader here and a leader have to do that. And I think understanding when it comes to our marriage and our relationship that Ken is the head of the household, so whatever happens, he takes on that role as being the head. But there's no movement without the neck. And me being able to be behind the scenes and be the neck and understanding my role as the neck and owning my role as a neck um has helped us to work better together. So
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that. So, tying into the levels of emotional intelligence, tying into the 5 components that you shared earlier, I think it's always a good place to discuss this thing called empathy versus sympathy. A lot of people don't really understand the difference. And I think what's oftentimes misconstrued when it comes to emotional intelligence is when people offer sympathy instead of empathy. The the definition of emotional intelligence speaks very clearly to being able to
Empathetic.
manage and have an interpersonal relationship in an empathetic manner. And when it comes down to sympathy, that's something that people will give off as in something where you just offering support or something where you're providing comfort, where more so when it comes down to empathy, you are bearing that burden. You are putting yourself in that other person's shoes to say, hey, I can understand where you come from. Hey, I can resonate with where you come from. So my question for you is, when it comes to emotional intelligence, do you feel is more so misconstrued, where is empathy that's offered or sympathy that's offered?
I feel like it's sympathy more than empathy, and that's the wrong way to go about it because you have to be empathetic. You have to be empathetic. You have to understand. You got to take yourself out the situation altogether because you don't know what's going on and you don't know what's going on inside that person. And like
Hmm.
she said it best. You have to put yourself in that person's shoes to understand what's going on with that person to better help assist that person or those people. So sympathy got to go out the door with emotional intelligence because you can't sympathize because that's a weakness, and
Hmm.
weakness goes back to self awareness because you have to know your strengths and your weaknesses.
Hmm.
So you cannot be weak in that situation. You have to remain strong and you have to remain positive. You have to self-regulate and you have to motivate. All that go down to when you get to be empathetic. So
Hmm.
empathy wins all day long in emotional intelligence.
Hmm. That's good. That's good. So next time you eat my brown butter cookies, that means you're gonna be empathetic to how I feel.
I'm gonna be sympathetic about some more. I mean,
You just said that you have to have empathy.
we talking about emotional intelligence in a different set. Then that's it. I'm just gonna have sympathy and I'm gonna buy some more. And that's what I did. This last time I ate the last cookie. I felt bad and I went and bought some more.
So if you guys are linked to our Facebook page, then you know that we have moments in our marriage where I struggle with emotional intelligence, and oftentimes it's related to him eating my brown butter cookies that are only offered at Kroger's, and the only reason that I go to Kroger, and him drinking my wine, and drinking my wine out of a non-wine glass. I feel that is a crime in itself. And when you do those things, it definitely hurts my feelings, and it definitely causes me to harbor feelings. So I want us to make sure that you guys heard it, and I heard it as well. Moving forward, he needs to learn to practice being empathetic when he does those things versus being sympathetic.
I'm just gonna buy some more.
All right, guys. If you're just now joining, I am Tiffany. I am owner and operator of Tiff Talk. This is Kenneth Parker, talk partner, and also my husband. We are sharing the platform today to discuss emotional intelligence. And we are about halfway through the segment, and we are getting into now transitioning to that point of being able to establish and how you personally waver your own emotional intelligence. So I mentioned kind of earlier being the type of person that used to hold grudges and now have gone and grasped and grown to the point where I'm not holding grudges, but more so being able to conceal and shelter my own feelings in situations that may have harmed or hurt me in the past or even in the present. But in doing so, one thing that I know that I'm more cautious of is being able to understand how concealing and sheltering those feelings play into relationships and interactions. And I've gotten to the point that I'm really focused at being able to understand these facts of life. Now, in our previous discussion, when we talked about faith versus facts, excuse me, tongue twister, faith versus facts, I shared from my perspective, we are all truly a collection of our own experiences. And being a collection of your own experience, those are your life facts. Those are what you live by. And struggling to get to the point where you can grasp this understanding of emotional intelligence, I want to kind of dive into the standpoint from your vantage point. Is it beneficial, or is it good to have the past as a reference point when it comes to emotional intelligence?
I mean, yeah, but you don't want to stay there. Um, you can have a reference to where you were. You
Mhm.
could be like a gauge, like
Hmm.
of where you came from, but you don't want to always go back there because you don't want to remember the person that you were.
Mm.
Kind of like who you want to become.
Mm.
So I mean, it's good to go back towards it, but I don't think people should consistently go back to the past. Like,
Mm.
just keep moving forward. You do not want to be the person you used to be. That's the what's the whole point of growing.
Mm.
So yeah, every blue moon, every quarter, maybe once a year, maybe, but to consistently keep going back, you're gonna get stuck there. So I don't think it's good.
I think when it comes down to having a reference point, I agree with being able to gauge your experience or gauge life lessons. Facts are revisited, facts are revised, there are amendments made to policy, there are amendments made to facts. So is nothing wrong with making amendments to those life facts for yourself. As you grow, your emotional intelligence will grow. As
Mm.
you evolve, your emotional intelligence will evolve. For me, I think this year, and probably just like the break of going into another chapter in life, I've been really focused on healing. um and I think it's important to be able to understand when it's time to heal, or when you get to a point where you want to truly heal. You have to be able to refer back to or reference those points, and those points or periods in your life that you were harmed, or where you were angry, or where you held on to something that you shouldn't have held on to for so long. But in also healing, you have to learn to forgive. And I think the hardest thing with forgiveness is being able to forgive yourself.
Mm.
Being able to forgive yourself for your part in the situation, because truly facts of life goes into and ties into your role in what you played into that. So yes, an ex-boyfriend may have harmed you or hurt you, but what situation did you stay around long enough, or did you not be self-aware that you stick to a situation that was uncomfortable for you? I mentioned that I used to allow myself to be uncomfortable in situations because it was comfortable. But when you allow yourself to be comfortable in an uncomfortable situation, then it's no longer that person that's harmed you. It's no longer that pain or that hurt that's as a result is what am I doing to myself?
Absolutely.
So for me, I feel what has gotten me to the point of correcting that action for me is being able to take ownership of my own faults, take ownership of my own foolishness, and then get to the point where I can forgive myself, forgive that person, and then move on and truly healed. Um, Not to say that it don't sting from time to time. I mean, you can have a bruise and put a band-aid on it, put neosporin on it, give it the opportunity to heal, but there will always be a scar. And I guess I would say my harboring feelings is those scars, if that makes sense. Their reference point of how to mindfully, cautiously deal with the person or deal with that situation from that point on, if
Mm.
that makes sense. So to kind of bring it all together, my final question for you is, what would you say from your experience has been your best effort, your best action toward becoming emotionally intelligent, but also normalizing emotional intelligence as a lifestyle?
Um, so my best efforts.
Your best effort or your best action. So for me, my best effort, my best action was learning truly how to heal
Mm.
and taking the time to heal.
Um, my best action or effort is I was never your always positive person. So to always remain positive, I look the good in anybody or every situation. There's always a good or bad, period. But I've always looked the good because the good will always outweigh the bad. Especially if I can explain why
Mm,
to you that the good will outweigh the bad in the situation that you're in or the situation that's going on in that moment,
mm,
to where you will see the better side of it and you will never think negative about that again.
mm,
So I'll try to keep, positive mindset, positive results. Um, it's really it really will change the way a person move
mm,
if they always think the good of something. Because it's always gonna be the bad, regardless
mm,
of we can find bad in anything. I can find bad of what's on the floor. Or I can be mad about it's raining outside. I live in Houston. It's always gonna be 12 o'clock is gonna rain. 12:05 is gonna be sunny. Like why be mad to where I just self regulate,
mm,
be self aware, remain positive, find the good in what's going on, and keep it moving. I mean,
mm.
I have to remain positive. If you know my 4 year old and you know the capabilities of how he would, he that dude he ruffles my feathers, so I have to stay positive.
And you know what I thought about when you were sharing your efforts and actions? Our show that we did on Beautiful Disaster with Raquel Oliver,
Hmm.
and being able to tie into whatever is going on in life, whatever shortcomings, whatever downfalls, being able to always view things from a vantage point of being a beautiful disaster. Things will happen, life will happen, but in that, looking at and seeking out the positive, looking at and seeking out the hindsight in everything is what wavers the difference.
Hmm.
So yes, prime example, we went to the water park on Friday in celebration of our 4 year old. And the weather was like, oh, like thunderstorms between this particular time. Oh, it's 60% between this particular time. So that deterred, of course, a lot of people away. But we got there, and although we were delayed because of traffic. Um, we were delayed because of some other things that went on in the day. We got there and had an awesome time. Like, because it was very few people in the water park, we literally just about had the whole water park to ourselves. No wait. Um, on anything, not rides nor food, and we had a good time. It rained for all of what, 10 minutes?
If that much.
And I mean, it didn't matter because we were at a water park in water. So being able to look at the hindsight of everything, that could have been, a bad situation. We could have missed out on building that memory with our son, but we seized the opportunity and look for the positive to make the best of the situation.
Absolutely.
So I like that. That was good. So to wrap up this episode, we always ask, what is your testament for today? So out of all that you've shared today, what do you want to be sure that our audience take from today from your standpoint?
Learn yourself. Please learn yourself. Right. Please learn yourself. If you don't learn nothing else,
Mhm.
learn you. Once you learn you, nobody can take that from you.
Hmm.
Nobody can make you do what you don't want to do.
Hmm.
Your emotions can't overcome you. I mean, everything starts with you.
Hmm.
Know yourself. Learn what pisses you off. Excuse my French. Learn what makes you happy. Learn what makes you excited. Learn what keep you in the spiritual realm. Learn you,
Hmm.
and you will control any situation at any given time, and that will probably be the most, the most, the best tool that you have in life is
Hmm.
learning you. So,
I think my testament from this particular episode, um, and from just this entire blooming season, is being able to understand to take the time and take back the power to heal. And that is because oftentimes when we experience hurt, harm, or trauma, when we struggle to understand self care, when we struggle to understand self awareness, self intelligence, emotional intelligence, excuse me, that is oftentimes because we didn't take the time to heal. And don't allow your timing to be dictated by any one person. I tell my kids all the time, no one can ever take your feelings away from you. So take ownership of your feelings. But in taking ownership of your feelings, also take the time to heal your feelings and be okay with that. So for me, it's something that I've learned within this year. It's something that I'm continuing to learn. It's something that I'm encouraging other people to learn. And that is, take the time, take the opportunity, and take back your power to heal.
that's good.
All right. This was a good episode, Ken. Thank
So
you.
I think now, the more I talked about it, I think I'm close to advance, but we'll see next time.
Yes, we'll see next time. Maybe we'll do an emotional intelligence 2.0.
We can do that.
All right. Okay. So I would like to say thank you guys so much for joining us this afternoon. Thank you for being a part of this episode. Thank you for being a part of this blooming season. It has been so rewarding for me. I've learned so much from manifestation to credit worthiness to FICO scores to faith versus facts to now emotional intelligence. I've really learned a lot. So I appreciate you guys for rocking with us. Though this is the finale of this blooming season, we do have another episode for this particular quarter, and that is going to be our Father's Day episode that Ken too will be taking the lead on and will be hosting. So we will be honoring him as a father, but also honoring our viewers that are fathers and those that take on that role, that fatherhood role in their lives. So make sure that you tune into that. It will actually air on Father's Day, which is June the 20th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And it will be live at 4 p.m. We will have giveaways for those that are tuning in for our dads and our father figures that are tuning in for that episode as well. Another really, really cool thing is today we will be wrapping up our Man in Power photo shoot. So I will be releasing some behind the scenes footage from that. And right before Father's Day is when our Men in Power editorial, our second editorial, which is the response to our first Women in Power editorial, will be debuting mid-June. So be on the lookout for that. I will be dropping the release date on that as well. This is the last time that you will see me in this capacity for this Tiff Talks quarter, but I look forward to seeing you guys in July when we have our Minority Mental Health Awareness Symposium. And details for that will be coming soon as well. In the meantime, I encourage you guys to keep talking. Make sure that you like, share, catch up, comment in our comment section on both of our social media platforms here, IG and Instagram, and check out our YouTube page as well. It has all of the footage from this particular quarter and the last quarter as well. In the meantime, thank you for joining and keep talking.